If you are a Vue developer, you might be interested in discovering Nuxt, and that's what I'm proposing you for the next 64 minutes.
Hello everybody and welcome on this course about Nuxt.js. I'm so excited to introduce you to this amazing framework I'm working with since 4 years now. I've been working in so many startups with it that I've said to myself I have to create a quick course about Nuxt.js. So basically, Nuxt.js it's a framework that has been built on Vue.js and that provides tons of tools that help us to go faster, to do a lot of things that most of the time we spend too much time doing. So basically, if you look at what Nuxt.js provide to Vue.js developer, it's a zero configuration start. Okay, you can start coding your app right away without adding, for instance, Vue router, because there's a file system routing that helps us to create pages on the fly. I'm going to show you that just after. But also Nuxt is very known for its rendering modes. We can switch from static website to server-side rendering, and which help us to do a lot of stuff to improve, for instance, our SEO, and it's very SEO friendly in Nuxt.js. Also, there are tools like data fetching that can help us to create local content or to fetch content from away. There are strong conventions also in Nuxt.js. We've got components auto import, which is amazing. You don't have to import anymore your components, and we've got a big ecosystem with years. Do not worry about that because on Nuxt.js, most of the modules of Vue have their equivalent, and there's also a way to import your modules that don't exist yet into Nuxt.js. So let's not waste our time right now and go directly inside the console. So if you don't have any code editor, you should use Visual Studio Code, which one I'm using. So I'm here, there we go. And what I'm gonna do, I'm going to type yarn create, okay, Nuxt app. And what I'm gonna do just after type the name of the project. So right now we are going to work on the second version of Nuxt. There is a third version that is going to come out really soon. I think it's about to come, but by the time I'm doing this video, it's not yet out. I'm gonna do a new video later on Nuxt 3. So let's say that Nuxt.js 2 course, okay? And I'm going to type directly this, and I have the CLI of Nuxt. So I think you can type Nuxt yarn add Nuxt to a project, yarn run dev, and from the CLI, yeah, npx create Nuxt app, which will be faster. You can type this also. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start again and copy paste npx. Yes, there we go. And my project name, as I told you, Nuxt.js2 course. Yes, I want to install the following packages that you are supposed to have also if you have typed the same command as I did. And start. So my project name will be Nuxt.js2 course. I want to work in JavaScript for now. I'm going to use yarn. I'm not going to use a UI framework. Nothing. I want to start with nothing. But I'm going to start in SSR mode. I'm going to use server, jsconfig, there we go, and my GitHub username, and there we go. It's going to install our packages we need in order to follow the course. And there we go. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to enter inside the, yes, there we go. I'm going to type code to open it in a new window. So bam, and there we go. Our project is ready to start in here. And I want to know if it is working, so I'm going to type yarn dev. And we see that a Nuxt folder has been already created up there. And this Nuxt folder is the building actually of the entire application. but we are going to come back on it later. All right, so I'm going to type this, copy paste, and I want to open it in here. And where are we now? I clicked on something, sorry. We are on our Vue.js Nuxt application running in here. All right. The project is currently naked. It misses a lot of folders and files, but we don't care. What we want to look at first, we want to look at the pages. Okay. So our pages system, actually, it's, I will say, the core of your Nuxt application. All your views will be here. And if we open index.view, what we'll see already is that we are importing a component called tutorial. And we can see that this component is on the folder component. Okay? But remember, if you did some Vue.js, we were supposed to have import tutorial from at components, blah, blah, blah. Okay? Remember, there is an auto import made by Nuxt. So we don't need to import anymore the components. They are already there. I'm going to talk about it after. First, let's talk about the pages. So we've got a page in here which shows us here the tutorial component. And that's really cool. But there is no, if we look closer, there is no view router file. And this is what I like the most with Vue.js, with Nuxt, sorry. It's that there is a view router that is already made for us and running. We don't have to configure any setup file. With view router, you're supposed to import the install view router, import it, inject it to your app.view file, which is not here. Okay. You have to do a lot of configuration and you always lose a lot of time. Here in Nuxt, you don't need that anymore. You just have pages down here and you got your index pages, which is the root of your application. This directory contains your application views and routes. So if I create a new root, and let's say that this root would be users.view and with a template and the users page, and I get back in here and I type /users, okay, which is supposed to be the path. The path corresponds to the name of the file. So if I type enter, I arrive on my users page. And of course, you can create as much routes and pages as you want. Let's say that now I would have a clients folder with an index.view, like we would do in JavaScript for modules. What I could do is directly say clients page. Nuxt would understand that it's also a page. And let's say that I want to have an ID page as a parameter just after clients. I would type underscore ID.view, and in here I would type template div client ID page. And if I get back in here and just after client I put random ID, I arrive on my client ID page. All right? To create our script, okay, with our export default. All right. And on the mounted lifecycle, so if you know Vue, you're supposed to know that mounted, it's an execution hook that will be executed at the time the page will be mounted. I want a console log where I am and what's all around. So I'm going to console log this. And if I get up, or maybe it's not saved, but I'm going to do it again. We see that I got my Vue components. Okay, my Vue component is in here with the big object with all the options that I got. And if I type $router and I update again, we see that I got my Vue router appearing in here. And this Vue router, okay, this view router, basically, it's the object of the view router that you can use. But I did a mistake up there. What I did is that I called router instead of root. And if I remove the air in here, I got elements about my root that have been generated directly by Nuxt. And in here in my params, we see that I got my ID. So if I get back in here and I do my root.params.id, there we go. And let's say that I have some numbers. I can catch my ID, which is in the params. So this was a quick introduction to pages, all right? What we have also is the components. So as I told you, components are already imported, okay? They are already imported everywhere. So let's say that, so I'm going to remove those two components. And let's say that I have a file called header.view, and I'm going to put my template in here. Okay, I'm going to close everything and get back at the root, so the index, and I got an error. What's happening in here? Of course, I do not have tutorial anymore. Okay, I save. Let's say home page. I save and I get back and I update. Let's say that I want to import header. As I told you, you don't need to do import. What you can do is just to type header, and it will understand that you want to import header. How does this auto import is working? I give you an example. So let's say that we have a folder called dashboard, and it's the same as root. I got an index down there, and I'm going to copy paste this, and this is my dashboard component, root component. And I'm going to get back here, and I'm going to import dashboard. All right. I got my component which is in here. But let's say that I want to have more element into it. Let's say that I would like to have a dashboard button, and inside I would have an index.view again. And I'm going to copy paste this, and this is my dashboard button. How would I import this button in here in my index? I just have to follow the path of the element. So I can do this, and when I get back, I got my dashboard button imported in here. So I follow the route from components, dashboard, button, index. And let's say that I got an icon.view. Okay. This is my dashboard button icon. Okay. What I can also do is to type dashboard button icon, and immediately Nuxt will understand how you want to import your components. So instead of having a lot of lines in here in your script, with Nuxt it's really clear and it's really clean, because you don't have to import all the time your components, and it is working in every page. If I get back here, if I get back inside my id.view, so let's say clients and blah blah blah, I also have my elements down here. Alright, so this is what I like the most about Nuxt.js. It's the auto import and the routing file system. But there's a problem you should ask yourself right now. Is that, alright Guillaume, but everything is auto imported, automatically done, etc, etc. But me, I want to do some configuration on my project. I want to do a lot of stuff. And most of the time in React, in every other JS project, you have a webpack file. Okay. In Nuxt, this file is called nuxt.config.js. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to close all of this and open my Nuxt config.js. All right. So Nuxt config.js helps you to globally configure your project. And we have a lot of options in here. Not all options are here, but I'm going to explain to you all of them. And we see here that we have this option called auto import components, which will have also it's the option to turn it off. If I put false, I can turn it back and not import every component. Okay, that's an option. You got to see that, and thanks to the Nuxt GS team, we've got a lot of comments that helps us, and especially the README, some README into folders to explain to you, for instance, in here. So thanks to the Nuxt GS team to do that, because it helps a lot beginners to come. So in this nuxtconfig.js, sorry, I will succeed. We have a lot of options, and I'm going to start to talk to you about the alias. Okay, so alias helps you to import elements, because we just saw that pages and components are auto-imported. But if you want to import JS file or images, etc., it doesn't work this way. So let's say that you want to import alias, okay? So basically what we would do, we would first import resolve from path. And path is provided in here to help us, and let's say that I would do that. So I would open alias, and I would say that I want to import all my images from a folder. And in Nuxt.js, so I got an error, it doesn't matter. This folder is called assets. So I'm going to create a folder called assets up there, and all my images will be in a new folder called images. All right, and instead of writing every time into my file, let's say in here, let's say that here I would have an image and with the source and doing that, you know, going up, doing all my stuff I want to do directly in here, images, which will be a resolve, sorry, put it that, resolve, and here I can put a string to join my path, the path that I want to have. And let's say that I want to have dir name, so the root of the file, and I would say /assets, all right, /images. And now what I can do is that I can import my image this way, images blah 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 dot png. Okay, so in the Nuxt config file you can start by doing this. Okay, this is one of the first options, alias, which is very, very useful. Then down there you've got the build option. So I'm going to put I'm going to let it here. And if you know Webpack and you want to extend your config, in here in build you got an option which is called extend config and this CTX weird parameter that we got. And guys, the CTX parameter, which means actually context, is a very, very important element of Nuxt. It gives you access to the whole framework and all the options that you can use to deal with your application, calling elements that are far away from each other, etc., etc. But I will show you that later. So if you are interested in the Webpack configuration, you gotta do this. Also, you got the CSS option, and the CSS option in here, which is very interesting, is that you can import your CSS from a file, and let's say that you have a styles.css, okay, and which h1, and let's say that you want all the h1 to be red. If you want to import your CSS directly in here, what you can do is that you can type in here the path directly. So here I call it style, let's say main CSS, like the example. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to start again the project. Okay, I get back, I update, I have no h1 to do my stuff, my title example, and I get back, and there we go. We see that my CSS has been updated and it has been imported just in here. Also, you have two other options that are very interesting. Is that you got the dev parameter, and here basically is to say that you are in a dev environment if you are not on production, okay, which is basically easy to understand. And if you want to pass your environment variable instead of installing .env, etc., etc., you can pass your base URL just in here. And let's say that at the bottom of our application we would have an environment file with your base URL and blah 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 blah. Okay, so I'm going to start again my application, and now it's supposed to be on. Okay, another option that we've got, and let's look a little bit at package.json. We see that we have dev, we have build, start, and generate. What does generate do? Generate build the application, generate every route as an HTML file, and statically export it to a dist directory. So let's say that I'm going to type yarn generate, and what we see right now, it's that we've got a dist folder with our application that has been built. And here we have a report on every operation and etc., etc. that has been done. All right. So every time you want to build your project and take your files like this, you got to type yarn generate, and here we see that we got all the application that has been built. So if you want to customize your generation, what you can do is that here create a new directory. So if you want your directory to be called dist and call it for example website, you can type dir website and it will be directly instead of dist, it will be directly called website. But also you can say subfolder false or true. It means that the HTML file will be generated according to root path. So, okay, let's say again that we want to do that, and let's type yarn generate again, and let's look at it. And I got a website, which is here, which look a bit different. And we see that instead of folder, we got a file down there. So I'm going to delete this. I can let you do the experience by yourself. Now you know. Another thing, it's the head or metas. Okay, with Nuxt, what you can do is that you can define the header of every page. So if you know HTML, of course you know, you got here the metas, you got the links, etc., etc. You got to know that you can also do that inside your components or your pages actually. So basically what we would do, we would go in here, okay, and type here head and do exactly the same that we've got. This is the main page. I would save and get back, And if I update, stopped. Yeah, of course, I didn't start it again. I get back and I update. We see that this is the main page, and you could add as much add element as you want, of course. So, which is very, very interesting for people who look for SEO. So yeah, take a look at this on this head, and here it's the major one, but you can overwrite it on the pages and the components. Also, another thing that we have, and I don't know if you noticed it, it's the loading bar. So here when we update, we're supposed to have a bar that is here showing our loading status. You can change, it's a detail, but I'm telling you. We can change the color of the loading, and let's say that we want it to be, I don't think it will pass this one, but let's say FFF0, there we go. We will have a red loading bar, and I would update, and there we go, it would change. We will see later the plugins, okay? So the plugins will help us to do operation or create our own modules. There is a way to create plugin, and I'm going to show you, but let's say that we are going to create a folder plugin, so mkdir plugins, all right, and let's say in here we will have a file called myplugin.js, and I'm going to show you after, so I'm going to start to not forget. Let's say that I want to import it in here. What I can do is directly opening an array and put in here the path of my plugin, and everything that will be written here will be triggered on start, and I will be able, we will see it later, how to use this plugin. So if I get back, and there we go, and let's say that I will type console log hello. There we go. As we see, we've got a plugin. We got both sides actually, because I'm using a Chrome plugin that helps me to show stuff like this. So hello, I'm going to delete this. I'm going to show it to you later. Okay. There are also many other options. If you want to change the source directory, let's say that you want to have all of this inside a source folder, what you can do is to say, hey, my source directory will be src. So you have to move everything inside src, and it will understand. You could customize your let's say that you want to change pages into views. Now it would understand that your router will look into views instead of pages. And also there is a page transition, there we go. Page transition element. Here you could change the type of page transition. Okay. For all of this configuration, you should go directly on the Nuxt.js website, because there are many options you could add in here to customize. What is this Nuxt element that we didn't create and which is here? It's a component that we use to display our pages. Okay, so basically this component is replaced by our router path, okay, and depending on the pages being shown, it's replacing it by the pages. So our default here layout is actually used down here, and let's say that up I'm going to say hello like this, and if I update we see that I got an hello, and then I got the pages down there. Nuxt is looking at the pages down there. So let's say that I want to have my header component in top of every page instead of importing it everywhere. I'm going to open it in here, and I've got my header, and also I could have my footer down there, and there we go. Okay, so we see that I got an error in here, but it's nothing for now. There we go. So we could say that we have a default layout, but I could create another one. Let's say a my dashboard layout. It's supposed to be this, okay? And I will have this and my used by dashboard layout use with dashboard layout, and there we go. Let's say that I want my index not to use the default layout, but another one. I can type in here my dashboard and my dashboard layout, and when I update, you see that I change. I don't use my default, I use my dashboard in here. Okay. Also, what you can use is you can use layout as a function. Okay, and in this function you will see that we still have this context that we can have. And if I'm console logging this context, let's see if we can console log it. We have the Nuxt context down here that I was talking to you about before. It's an object basically provided by Nuxt to help you to deal with tons of situations, but we will see that after. Okay, we've got our context in here, but let's say that I want to have a layout also, and so I'm going to remove this because I don't care. I just want to have an error.view layout. And if I take and I copy paste the example from the basic example from Nuxt.js and I type blah blah blah, a fake root, I've got my page not found that is appearing, which is my error layout. If you put an error.view on the layout folder, Nuxt will understand that this is the page you want to show as an error page. All right, which is really cool. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm just going to put this and let my error layout in here. Okay, there we go. Also, what I'm going to talk to you about now is middleware. So I'm going to create a new file called middleware. Okay, so I'm going to type enter, and I've got a folder called middleware that has been created. So I'm going to start again, and actually I'm going to remove all those elements that I have in here because I don't care about those elements. And it's in my main page. And I don't like this. I'm going to put a new color and put a blue violet. I like it. Let's go. And there we go. I got my main page in here, and let's say that I would need to have something that happens before the initiation of my application. What I can create is a middleware. And let's say that I'm going to call this middleware auth.js. All right. What I would do, I would export by default some configuration. But this configuration actually takes place as a context. And you see, we see context everywhere in Nuxt. This is what is cool. We can use the context everywhere. And let's say that I want to console log and say first passed by auth middleware. And here, there we go. If I update my page and I look at the console, I've got nothing. Why do I got nothing? Because by default, Nuxt is not going to use your middleware. If you want to use the middleware everywhere in your app, you got to go back on your nuxt.config.js and you got to say that I want that my router use a middleware, and this middleware is the auth file. I don't have to import it. He understands that the middleware comes from here. So if I save, and there we go, and I update, look, first passed by auth middleware. You could also do directly middleware, okay, auth like this. All right. And it's a waste of time because we already used it in here, but I'm going to remove it and start again because it will make an error. I got middleware, and on every route it's supposed to use the middleware, but in here it didn't work because here actually in the Nuxt component, and don't make the mistake I just did, it's supposed to be on pages. So we removed the middleware from the routing, and we want to say that I don't want you to see my user page if you don't pass by auth. So what I would do is that directly create a script, export default, and please use my middleware. So here I'm on my main page and there is no console log. But if I go on the users page, first pass by auth middleware. And what I could do is that I want to console log this context object. Okay. And let's say that I would create a new view, and this view would be my secret. Okay. And this would be my secret page. And I'm going to use my middleware auth, which is here. So on the side, secret page, then the authentication. And when I go on secret page, here I got this big object, blah, blah, blah. But let's say that I don't want you to enter this page. And when I save and I update, I got the message, but I still got the page. And let's say that I don't want to have it. What I have is that on the context, Nuxt provide to me tools that help me to how to explain, how to prevent me to enter this app. So what I can use is that I can use what we call redirect. So in the object context, I get the redirect, okay? And let's say that every time I enter in secret, I want to redirect directly to the main page. So look at it. I try to enter in secret, it doesn't work. All right, I'm stopped directly. So here you would do operation to say, hey, check the cookie, hey, do this operation, hey, do that before going to the next page. And to go to the next page, you can use the next object, which is actually a function. And let's say that you would do next in here. Okay, so here, deeper into it, what we could do is typing context. Okay, so here it's translating to me in a language that I don't want, but let's say I want it to English. The context object is here. You've got many other options: the app, the store, the route, the params, the query, the redirect, and the next that is not here, but you can use also. I don't know why it's not here. Anyway. All right. So the last possibility for you is not to use middleware this way, but directly to write a middleware inside your component. And here is the same. You still got the context. Okay. So what we could do, and remember we got access to the store that we are going to watch just after. Let's say that if there is no user in the store, and this example comes directly from Nuxt, let's say auth, and there is no state auth, okay, we can say redirect directly to the main page. So I'm going to type this, get back in here, and type secret, and it says that it cannot find reading any state, okay, because we didn't configure the store yet because there is no state. Okay, so let's say if it's not true, redirect to this, just to give you the example. And I got, if true, sorry, here it was wrong. And look at the loading bar that we just saw in here, /secret, and redirect is not defined because I didn't import it. Doing mistake in live And there we go. We see that we cannot enter. Okay? This is another way to directly use middleware. So I'm going to remove this for now and let this in here. Let's talk about modules. In Nuxt also you can create modules by creating a folder modules. So I'm going to do create modules. So let's say that down here, where is module? There we go. Let's say that we can a my module.js, and in here I'm going to directly take the example from the current website of Nuxt. I would have in here a module that I would call, okay, to do all my action, and we see here that I got a hook, okay, in the Nuxt object. And I could say that when Nuxt you are ready, do this, okay? This is a reference to the current Next instance. So you can register hooks on certain live events. Let's say that you want to do something on mountain, you could do it in here, etc., etc. Let's pass on the plugins that we already saw before. Let's say that you would like to use plugins to do some operation or stuff like this. Like let's say that you would like to install Vue Bootstrap. So I do that on the fly. I didn't prepare that. Okay, so I've got Vue Bootstrap, and I go there and I go on the documentation, and first I'm going to look if they have something support on Nuxt.js module. So I'm going to add Vue Bootstrap. So what I can do is that, yeah, there we go. It says module export using SCSS, and there we go. Add Bootstrap Vue to Nuxt in your config nuxt.config.js. So as you see, you could go down there and go on your, so it says modules, which is down here. We could add our module in here. So what I would do is doing that, but also I could use my module, which is in here. And what I would do, I would copy paste this line to go faster. There we go. Call my module, which will be called in here. Okay, so this is the first way, but also you could import Bootstrap Vue directly by a plugin. So if I remove this and I want to import it via a plugin, what I would type is that I would import Vue from Vue because I'm outside of Nuxt right now. And what I'm going to do is that I want to import Vue Bootstrap from Bootstrap Vue, and I would say Vue use Bootstrap Vue. All right. So basically here it's not exactly Bootstrap Vue. I'm supposed to call the dest and call the ESM file. There we go. And if I would like to import this plugin, I would go in here and go to plugins. And we see that I got my plugin, which is supposed to be Bootstrap on the future, okay, to be clear. So here I got my plugin, which is here. Sorry, this is the module I show you. There we go, my plugin. So I'm going to type yarn dev, and here we see that I got an error. And we see cannot find module package.json. Maybe it comes from the example that we have up there. So for now, I'm going to remove it to go further. There we go, yarn dev. There we go. And I'm going to come back in here, update. And there we go. So basically from now, so here it's the full configuration if you want to do it. Basically from now, what I could do is that maybe let's try if it's going to work, and I hope so. If not, it will be a CSS problem because I know it's linked on Bootstrap Vue. And I go on my page and I go on my index, and I got a default alert, and it's not working because here, if I look on it, getting started, so we would get back on the Nuxt, we didn't import the CSS, and this is really important bootstrap view. Well, yeah, of course, we can do that also. So bootstrap view using custom bootstrap CSS. You can customize it, etc., etc. I really have to import my module. So I'm going to get back in here and say that it's going to be regenerated and up. And there we go. I got my default alert with everything that has been done. So my plugin didn't work, actually. My plugin in here didn't work. So it's a problem because I would like to do stuff with it. This way, it's a way to import it. But basically, what I can do is that I can export default a function, and I could register to the Nuxt object my own module, my own plugin that would use, let's say, an API module that would use some roots from another file. In short, I would like to create my own plugin. So what I would do, what I can use in here is that I got the CTX and I got also an inject, okay, an inject method that will help me to create my own instance. And let's say that I got a const API and I would have pass and blah blah blah, etc. An object with something in it. You can put everything like services or what you want. And down there I could use the context and create an API object with a dollar. Here, of course, I cannot use something that is already used, like Bootstrap view or whatever, I don't know. If you look at the context object, I can, of course, overwrite what is in it, but here I want to do my own. So I'm going to create, let's say, my custom API plugin. Okay, and what will be this entrance, this reference? It will be my API, which is up there. So let's say that we have a call which is a function and console log, blah blah blah, between quotes, and there we go. And then what I could do, I could use inject, and I could use inject my custom plugin with what? With my API object up there. So there is no key provided here. So when I'm here, okay, on my index, I want to have a button. So I'm going to get back on the components and I'm going to go on button, and there we go. And I want to use my plugin. So say hello from plugin. Okay, and here I can have a directive click that will use my custom plugin. This is the logic you would follow, my custom API plugin. Okay, basically what I'm going to do first is that I want to console log. Okay, this dollar my custom plugin. Okay, and let's say if my plugin appear, and we got my plugin appearing in here. So as you see in the context of Nuxt, I injected my own directive, which is here. And of course I cannot call this, I want to call and there we go. And when I click, blah 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 blah. So let's say that here you can do a lot of stuff. This is how you could create your own plugin. Nuxt generate for you your own store. So I'm going to close this. There we go. And here my store is empty. Normally you would use Vuex or Pinia as a store, and here directly Nuxt.js automatically generate your store. So the store directory contains directly your Vuex store files, and the Vuex store comes with Nuxt out of the box, but it is disabled by default because many people don't want to use a store. So basically, to activate it, what you gotta do is to create a first index.js file. All right. And in here, you could have a state, which would be a function. Okay. And you have to return this function. So here, there we go. Counter, which will be at 0. So I'm taking the official example to explain to you. You would have a state, okay, directly in here. Then, let's say that we would have getter, okay, getters to get the counter, which would be up there. We would have a mutation. So all of this would be on top of an action. The automatical store that is being generated here, it's made with view X, okay? Nuxt generates automatically your view X, which is here. So let's say that we would have a new folder, which will be a users, and inside we could have a file, which will be index.js. You would create a new store this way with a state with user, and let's say that here we got ID1 name Guillaume, okay, and let's say we remove this because it's always working the same. I would get back in here, and what I would do is that on mounted I would console log this $store, okay, dot state. I would remove, I would update. What I would have, and you see it in here, I would have my counter, but also as the pages in the component, our store is already imported in here. So what do we have? We have a users object, which could be, so here I made a mistake, it's supposed to be user1 because we work by key value. All right, so here I got users1 and I update again, and when we look at it, I got my user with my ID and my name. So Nuxt understood that the folder user with index.js is a store inside the store. All right, with the automatical import, it's really useful. The first, it's the asynchronous data hook. So it's a hook for universal data fetching. You might know fetch from JavaScript. It requires you to set properties on the component instance to save your async state. Async data simply merge the return value into the component local state. Okay, so basically here I got a post title, a description, and I'm going to call directly on the mounted, actually when the file will be rendered, an async that data, and it took two elements inside our context, which is params and $HTTP. So we want to have a post, okay, and we will await for this post to be fetched. So here is from the official documentation of Nuxt, and here I'm going to update, and I got an error because I don't get here HTTP from the context. So maybe I would type this and destructure my context. And actually what I'm going to do first is that I'm going to console log my context, okay, because this official example runtime error title, okay, and here we see that we've got an error that is not prevented. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to put a condition and say what if post, and there we go, and I'm going to update, and there is no post, and we see that I got an error because basically what I should have on this example is a post, and post would be on undefined. All right, so I'm going to update this, and I don't get an error, but I still got this big object which is on the string because it's rendered on the Nuxt SSR side. And we can see now that if I want to turn in or turn off my SSR, what I can do is just type SSR false, okay. So here we see that I'm going to stop my application and start it again in order for you to understand. I just want to have a client-side application and not a server-side. And there we go. We've got my big object. And we see that So async data can help you to fetch some elements directly. This is asynchronous call that we can use. But the other way would be to use simply the fetch, okay, the fetch method. And this fetch method also could be used and accessed with the $fetch anywhere in the application. All right? What is the difference between fetch and async data? Okay? To load data on our application, Nuxt provide those two functions. Okay? The main difference between those two hooks is that they are available on different Nuxt life cycles. You have to understand that when Nuxt start its life cycle hooks, it starts by a function called Nuxt server init. And this function, we can look at it directly on going to Nuxt.js Nuxt server init. It's an action that is defined in the store, and the mode is universal. Universal, it's supposed to be not SSR. Nuxt will call it with the context only from the server side. Nuxt server init, it's an action that you can change on the store, that is defined on the store, and the mode is universal. Nuxt will call it when with the context only from the server side. It's useful when we have some data on the server we want to give directly to the client side. This is the first lifecycle hooks of Nuxt. Then you got the root middleware hook that we saw that is creating all the routes. Then we have another one that is called validate, and then we have async data. Okay. What we want to know is that we want to fetch the data asynchronously when we do async data. But when we do fetch, we arrive after created has been triggered, okay? And of course, after before create, okay? So those life cycles, you can find them inside the Nuxt.js website, sorry. But this is the main difference. Async data, okay, is called before create, and this one is called after before create and created. Could not finish this video without talking about server-side rendering, because as we saw in here, we can use the server-side rendering, so we understand that everything is built on the server side, and we can use the client-side rendering. So what is server-side rendering? If we look at the definition of server-side rendering on the Nuxt.js website, we can read that server-side rendering is the ability of an application to contribute by displaying the web page on the server instead of rendering it in the browser. So what we understand is that Nuxt.js is able to build your application and render it from the server instead to render it on your browser. So server-side sends a fully rendered page to the client, and the client's JavaScript bundle takes over, which then allows Vue.js app to iterate. To understand server-side rendering, we can go on vuejs.org and we can look at the overview. And let's read that together. Vue.js is a framework for building client-side application. By default, Vue components produce and manipulate DOM in the browser as output. However, it is also possible to render the same components into HTML strings on the server. So server-side. On the server, you render your components and your whole application into HTML strings, send them directly to the browser, and finally iterate the static markup into a fully app on the client. When I turn server-side on true, which it does, it actually render the same component into strings from the server and send them to the browser. But if I turn it on false and I go client-side, the Vue components produce and manipulate the DOM of your browser. So all the action that Vue is doing on client side is using your engine on the browser to create your application and display the routes and etc. etc. But if you want to avoid this for many reasons, mainly for SEO reasons, or maybe for competition reasons, or for complexification or speed reasons, for instance, you can do it on the server side. And of course, Nuxt.js helps you to do it here as we see. And when you put server side on true, you see here that you get the server that is doing his work and then the client. Or otherwise, if you put it on false, here we see that the server doesn't move anymore and it is only the client. When do you want to use server side? It depends on many reasons. A lot of projects need more and more server side. So let's look at the documentation. Why server side rendering? Compared to a client-side single-page application, the advantage of SSR primarily lies in faster time to content. This is more prominent on slow internet or slow devices. As I told you, if you want to be competitive and have really fast applications, you can use server-side rendering. If you want to improve your SEO and so the fastest rendering as possible, you can use SSR also. Server-rendered markup doesn't need to wait until all JavaScript has been downloaded and executed to be displayed. So it really improves the speed of your application actually. So your user will see a fully rendered page sooner. And I think this is one of the most reasons you would like to use SSR. In addition, data fetching is done on the server side. And that's what we saw before. Some actions need to be on the server side instead of the client for many reasons, which likely has a faster connection to your database than the client. So we understand that data fetching done on the server side is likely faster as the client, okay? It has a better connection to your database. This generally results in improved Core Web Vital metrics, better user experience. I don't know what it is, Core Web Vital metrics. Better user experience and can be critical for application where time to content is directly associated with conversion rate. Unified mental model. You get to use the same language and the same declarative component-oriented mental model for developing your entire app instead of jumping back and forth between a back-end templating system and a front-end framework. That is true. If you did some project like this, you understand. Better SEO. The search engine crawlers will directly see the fully rendered page. And this is the case I saw the most with many projects. They need a better SEO, so they switch from a Vue application to a Nuxt SSR rendering page that help us on the server side, that help us to improve the quickness on how your page is rendered, because you know the Google robots really look at how fast your page is displayed, and if it's too slow, your rate is going down and it's really bad. So I'm not going to read all the page with you guys, but there are many reasons why you would use server-side rendering. I'm putting this address in the description, and yeah, just take a look because there are many other explanations, such as the client hydration, okay, which is an important one, but it's more related to Vue.js, which I will treat in a future course. So yeah, thanks for watching this course. Thank you very much. If you didn't subscribe yet, please go on my YouTube channel and subscribe. I hope this quick presentation of Nuxt would have convinced you to switch to this framework in order for you to create a Vue application. Yeah, thank you so much and see you soon. Bye.